Here,
Ah, right.
check, check.
Check. So here we are. Jesus. Wow. That was really too late. Sorry, guys. It seems like you don't check out. You don't directly connect with OBS to YouTube, but instead use the stream key. Wow, that was 15 minutes. We're 15 minutes behind. Sorry for that, guys. So, I think we should start, right? That sounds like a good idea. So, the stream is now running. I'll have to check the chats. Okay. So, I hope everyone can hear me. But it looks like we have created a very new chat. So we have to, I think we have to, damn.
Yeah, I saw it now. And the old one, at the end, there was a little bit of a picture.
Yeah, but a little bit of a picture. So just a little bit of a picture. So we have to, what do we have to do? We have to tell the people that there is a new link. Wow, that is so horrible.
No, you have to get the old one.
Wow, so, okay. So let's do that. Just, you mean I have to go to the old one and use the old one?
Yeah, that you get the stream ID from the old one.
Okay, let's check that out.
If it's possible, yeah.
Okay, so maybe don't use that stream. So you can still see my, Jesus, the old one is gone.
Oh boy.
Oh, wow. That is gruesome. Jesus Christ. Wow.
The old one is gone.
Yeah, it's completely gone. Wow.
And in YouTube, can you go to the, because there is I just clicked on the link and
yeah, but we already started the stream, so it's for
and
YouTube,
then there is
it's
a
like,
video now.
yeah.
There's a video now.
So
for YouTube, it's finished.
yeah, damn. That is horrible. Jesus Christ. That is absolutely horrible. Okay. Then I think we have to start new all over again. Oh wow. So yeah.
Just put the new link in the chat, maybe, of the old one.
Yeah.
I will.
Can you do that? Because right now,
yeah, as soon as you send it to me, yes.
Have you the new one? It's right on my page, so you can just go there.
On the page is a new one. Frequency talk. Here we go. In, and then I go to the old one. And here in the chat and in the comments.
Wow. So now we start. I see we have actually 3 visitors now. So. Wow. Hey, everyone. Welcome to this very messy, very messy first episode of Frequency Talk. My intention was to have a lot of people on this show which would like to talk with me about audio engineering, gear, and many other stuff that is interesting for musicians and also sound designers. And it looks like this first episode has some difficulties at first, but I'm very honored and very pleased to have someone with me tonight. And this is Paul Schaal, or shall I say Paul Schaal for the English listeners? What is your favorite pronunciation for this stream?
I don't mind usually. English people have problems with pronouncing.
Okay, so I would think I will call you Paul Schaal then, and you are a mastering engineer. and
Uh,
also a producer from Berlin. So you're originally from Hamburg, but you now live in Berlin. And yeah, so you are also an SPL ambassador. So I thought,
that's true.
why not show some of your gear in the next couple of weeks? So today we will talk about mastering fundamentals. Why mastering? Why should we care? And what is the actual job of a mastering engineer? And the funny thing is that Paul and I, we met at an Elusia event back in the summer when you could actually visit some people. And I was there for RME, and Paul was there to promote his workshops and just to be there, I guess.
True.
And we met and talked about mastering, and we had an instant connection because we both thought of mastering as an art form rather than just a job that you do, because actually that takes a lot of craftsmanship to be a mastering engineer. And in today's world where we have so many plugins that supposed to be, you know, your new mastering friend, it's quite interesting that people still come to mastering engineers, and for good reason. So Paul, maybe you talk a little bit about yourself and then we dive into the topic.
Yes, thank you, Adrian. Yes, it's true. I'm actually also a mastering engineer, but basically I'm coming from a producer background. I'm producing since 25 years almost. And for me, before I started with mastering, or when I started production, I had no idea basically about mastering at all. Neither much about mixing or sound processing or whatever. But even later in the years when it went on, mastering still always was kind of a myth, where most people around me and also myself included had basically no idea how to proper master a song and what to use and how to get there. I think nowadays that changed a bit. Mastering became more and more popular, I would say, and more people care about it and recognize that this is a final step that's needed to publish your music. I think the basic reason is also because the ways of distribution has changed in the past 10, 20 years a lot, since all of us have internet and we are basically directly connected with platforms where you can buy consume music, like streaming platforms or download portals. So that the final steps of the production are now more in the hands of the actual artist who's almost directly distributing his music and not there's not always this big labels in between that are taking care of the final steps like mastering and mix down or distributing.
So you said that this is kind of like a like a dark sorcery or something that is hidden to most of the people. And I was the same, you know, when I started making music, mastering engineers were like this like guild of people that controlled the final stage and just said what is good sounding music and what is bad sounding music. And I think we have to start from the beginning. Actually, mastering engineers, correct me if I'm wrong, were the guys that would cut the vinyl. That was just the first step. So back in the day, in the 50s and in the 40s, when there was shellac and vinyl, these formats had a certain operating level, so to speak. And the thing that a mastering engineer did was actually to control the frequency response and also the operating level of that for that format. So the vinyl needle that cuts into the or grinds into the dub plate, or in the plate, wouldn't skip. So that was the original idea of a mastering engineer. And in the next years, then it started to become like a more, subjective matter of what a mastering engineer should do, right?
True, yeah. I mean, also, yeah, it was basically also the mechanical process, as you just said, of mastering, of creating the master disk. This is where the word comes from. That was used as a stamp to create all the copies of vinyl later on. So, yeah, but even also back then, as you said, it included like a final correction of the frequency response, maybe do react to the physical limitations of a vinyl and how to bring the waves or the how to create the groove in the vinyl plate. And yeah, and also like the last step of quality control. And but also later on when mediums switched to cassette and CD or digital mediums, and mastering was still very important, as also these mediums always have limitations and specifications, and also they have their own behavior if you get to the limits of their specifications, like frequency range, when we talk about digital mediums, like dynamic range caused by the sample rate and bit depth of a file, like for CD 16 bits and 44 kilohertz, that defines your limitation. This is one very important, of course, technical aspect of mastering, but on the other hand, and especially nowadays, where we have way more musicians or people who actually release or record or produce their own music, like back in the days where we had vinyl, where usually not everybody had access to a studio where he was able to record a band. So like the amount of music was way lower, and also the level of production was always way more professional, I would say, because usually professionals were involved and needed for the production, because you needed an expensive facility, analog recording facilities, and mixers and microphones and instruments, and the whole band set up usually to create a piece of music. Nowadays, what you need is a laptop, basically, and a pair of headphones and your creativity. And for many people, this is enough to create music, and this music is also being released and distributed. And therefore, it became way more important to do quality control of this music, and to final process these creations, because not everybody who's creative and maybe also a great musician or an artist is also an audio engineer and technician, and is able to create sonically perfect mixes, and even bring it to a level where it's in the range where consumers usually receive professional produced music.
See that we have some bad echoes. Maybe we can check that. I'll check that later now. Maybe I have to do that here. Let's see what's happening right now.
Headphones a little bit.
Yeah, maybe we check that now, if that is better. Maybe you can talk right now for a second.
Yeah. Yes. Of course.
I think that's better. I think the problem was that the Skype was still on. Maybe you can.
Okay.
Can you check that? If that is better now, let's check that on the stream. Sorry, guys. Yes. Of course. I think that's better. I think the problem was that the Skype was still on. Maybe you can. Yeah. So now it's better. Sorry, guys. So just to sum that up, interestingly enough, we can say that mastering is the finishing and final touches that comes to your music, and that is before you go to the actual distributor, to the medium. And nowadays, where we have like Apple Music and Spotify, CD and vinyl, so we have different output formats, I think the importance of mastering increases right now, because the problem is that all these different streaming services have different output volumes, and they specify different operating levels. So for us, it's or for you, because I'm not a mastering engineer, sorry, but for you guys, it's actually quite interesting now to find the best way of distributing music out there. So could you tell me a bit more, what is your take on mastering for CD or vinyl compared to the actual process of finding the best level now for digital streaming services?
At the end, it's the same approach.
Okay.
I always try to find the best loudness range or level of a track where the track sounds the best for itself. I try not to compare it to other tracks, also not in the genre as much as I can. And then, of course, there's always, most of the time, the compromise to bring it to a level that is actually, or to a loudness range that is actually, compatible to what the most of its genres music is released on.
Okay.
So
maybe we go into detail right now, because actually it's interesting. Correct me if I'm wrong. Spotify has a higher RMS, so I think we should
LUFS.
LUFS level than Apple Music. So what that means is that when you publish a track on Spotify and the track is mastered for Apple Music, Spotify has to increase the volume. Is that right?
That's true. Spotify will increase the volume by actually 2 dB.
Okay. And what is the other way around? So if I master for Spotify, so it's louder than the specifications for Apple Music, what will Apple Music do?
Apple Music will decrease the volume around 2 dB, and not also that is even that the different platforms use different ways to decrease or increase the material. There are also beside Spotify, then there's Amazon, then there is Tidal, then there is Deezer, and some others, and some of them using limiters to compensate volume, others just trim the level, and all of them vary, and that makes it not easier to find the perfect balance for a track. What I try, or what I always negotiate with my clients, is like where do you have the most listeners? What's your stage? Where do you present your music? Is it a streaming track like hip hop or trap, but it's running a lot over Spotify, and it's also the playback medium takes a big part. Is it music that people listen on YouTube or on their phone or on their boomboxes, or is it club music that is basically played on a professional big sound system in the club, and is more designed for download platforms or DJs to play back? Or is there
a download platform such as Beatport? Does Beatport leave the level as it is, or is there also a trade-off when uploading to Beatport?
It's when you download it, you get the file as it was uploaded.
Okay, so that's
depending on the bit rate that you buy. Of course, when you buy an MP3, then it's decoded to MP3, and then of course you also have to see that you compensate the decoding process, or that the distributor is delivering a separate MP3 to Beatport. And there also you have big variations with what is supported by different distributors. This is also something that you have to consider as a mastering engineer, or talk back with your clients if you work with bigger labels or major labels, or smaller independent artists that using distributors like DistroKid or whatever is out there, or uploading it directly to Spotify, what's even possible. But most people, of course, using a distributor that splits it to all platforms at the same time. And there also you again have limitations. Some are kind of living still in the 90s sometimes, I think, where you can only supply a 16-bit file with 44 kilohertz or something. Others accept multiple files. Some only accept one file, and they ask you to deliver the highest format, and then they transcode it to other formats like MP3 or lower bit rates.
Okay.
And yeah, all this is of course at the final distribution point topic, and beside from the loudness area where you play.
Yeah. So I actually have a question from in the comment section, and you are always free to ask us whatever you want, because we are here to answer all of your questions. And the first question is, do you work with LU meters?
Not much. LU or LUFS. This is two different things. I use them sometimes in the end control to at the last step to see if I'm in the right ballpark for the genre and the client. It's also something where I always give a recommendation of what I think is the best for the song.
All right.
And most of the time, sadly, not most of the time, I would say 50% of the time, the client wants it louder.
Of course they do. Of course they do.
Of course, it's no problem to make it louder. I can do that always. But it's always a payoff in quality. You usually lose impact and dynamic and feeling and expression of the track. And this is something you always have to put into consideration, and depends a lot also on the genre and the audience for this kind of music and how it's consumed, especially with pop music, or also like rap, where it's a lot about storytelling and about the vocals and about, of course, also about sound and impact on a way. But often it's consumed by, or not, I wouldn't say on hi-fi systems.
Yeah.
Like it's people listen to it on a sound bar or in the car, what can be a good situation, maybe not, depends on the car.
Yeah.
And on smaller systems, maybe on a stereo system at home, or sometimes on a house party or something, and maybe twice a year or a few times a year on a festival as well. But this is then another topic. Sometimes you have different versions. Then it's also that I deliver various versions or playouts then for the clients, especially for bigger or more professional clients that are also touring with their music. Usually I provide for them a live version, a vinyl version for vinyl processing, a CD version or a download version. Sometimes this is the same version, just a different bit rate, and a streaming version to have all things covered. And then it's of course on the other side then a question of budget nowadays as well, because
so let's put this straight. There is something different, because a digital master will will cost less probably than an analog master, right?
Uh, Not always, but often.
Okay.
I would say. I mean, there are people that are working digital, there are people that are working analog, there are people that are working hybrid. And I mean, I think you're talking about the way of processing, not if it's a vinyl mastering or for a CD distribution.
Actually, I was talking about the budget restrictions that you were referring to because.
Okay, this is also about the version, the playouts, the versions. When I have to
okay. Sorry.
when I have to create a mastering for streaming with -14 LFS ideal, maybe, and then the label also wants an amfit master for iTunes. Let's do the full case scenario, and then they want to produce a vinyl. This is a third. This is a little bit complete different master because for vinyl I usually don't use limiting, and it's way quieter. It's in an area of -18, -12 LFS, and -18 more usually, and especially -1 dB peak level, and I don't use limiting.
Which is actually a good point right now because someone asked in the comment section how much dBFS does the track have to be after mixing for mastering. So what is the what I as a musician should give out as a peak level for the mastering engineer to work with?
The peak level actually doesn't matter as long as you don't clip.
All right, okay. Because I've talked to mastering engineers and they told me best is around -18 LUFS.
LUFS, okay, yeah.
So yeah, he is referring to dBFS. Sorry, yeah.
DBF,
so yeah, there's a difference, right?
There's a difference, and dBFS peak level or dBFS RMS level or dBFS LUFS level. These are three different things measured over a different period of time. Yeah, LUFS is measured over the whole track, usually. So it defines the dynamic range between the the average dynamic range between the quietest and the loudest or densest parts of the track.
Okay.
Considering the whole frequency spectrum of the track.
All right.
And RMS, for example, is the average loudness over a time of, I think, 30 seconds, something like that, 20 something seconds, I think. And peak level is the loudest peak level at any period of time. It can be only for a millisecond.
All right. Okay.
So the loudest peak over the whole track is the peak level. So this of course should not be over 0, because if it's over 0, it's not on the picture. I like to say it's like when you make a painting and you draw over the frame.
Yeah.
Nobody will see it, and it's the same when you peak over 0. As long as you are not, this is also something I don't want to confuse you, but when you're working in 32-bit float or 64-bit float even, then even this doesn't matter.
Okay.
Because I can lower the volume, and because it's floating point, the peak levels are also laid down in the file, in the wave description.
So what I get from your talk is that, because we now actually just started with the first question, what is mastering and why should I care? The actual answer to that question is because delivering music in this modern world now has become more complicated instead of easier. And that is interesting because when I see plugin companies that tell me that there is a mastering plugin, or there is stuff like Lander, I always have this this sort of like idea that mastering is now so easy, I just hit a button and I just uploaded it and then it's gone, then the track is ready and I can work and I'm a next star. And actually it turns out that everything is far more complicated than that, because now we have different output formats, and you always try to find the best operating level or the best sound for each output format, right?
Yes, this is one point. And then far beside this, I mean, this is some some technical things and things you can solve with numbers and also with some knowledge about that. Also, the other thing is the yeah I would say the polishing of the music, like to bring it to the next level, or to even to evolve the music, the mix down, the composition, the product that was there before the mastering, to bring this to a higher level, sometimes up to 30, sometimes 50%.
And I made a list because so the important thing is, why is mastering so important? Because we as musicians don't know sometimes when our track sounds wrong, and I have been in that trap myself. You know, I have delivered tracks to a mastering engineer, and they came back to me and told me, Adrian, please check this track again, because there's actually no bass, or there was too much bass or too much highs. So there are actually, because normally we don't talk about this, but there are actually objective reasons why your mix might sound wrong. And this could be phase issues, there could be too much highs, bass problems, stereo imbalances, maybe a muddy mix, or your vocals disappear for some reason. And this all comes down to certain reasons. The first reason might be your, and this is what I'm also guilty of, your reference point is bad, meaning your acoustic treatment in your studio is horrible. Sometimes you mix on bad positioned monitors, you don't hear what you are doing. And sometimes I know that myself, when I'm in my living room and I'm outside of this triangle for the best hearing position, I mix too much bass, because the bass actually develops behind me. And what I get is a completely overflown or too strong mix in the bass. And that's a problem. And I urge you really to think about this. The most valuable thing that a mastering engineer can give you is a second pair of ears, because you are too much in your track, in your song, and you will forget, or you can't hear actually what is going on at some point, because you just have so much going on in this track. You think about other things, about automation, about the drop, about anything else than the mix. And to have someone that listens objectively, okay, put that in quotes, objectively to your track, that is the most valuable thing that I can tell you that a mastering engineer gives you.
Yes, I can 100% agree. This is for very important. I think most of us know that that when you have listened to a track like 1,000 times or 2,000 times before it's finished, that you just don't hear any differences anymore. You might have changed it 5 times the mix, but after the end you have like 5 mixes, but you can't tell which one is the best one.
Guys, I added another plugin to the mix. You know, now there's a type plugin. All right, so the transients are completely gone, Adrian. What are you talking about? It's amazing. It's amazing.
So yeah, it's so many factors that can happen in a production from start to finish. It's also why, as a mastering engineer, I think it's very important that before you start to master your own tracks or master for other people, that you went through all steps of production yourself, that you know how to record a track, that you know how to mix a track, that you know how to arrange a track, that you basically know about how instruments are played, how instruments sound, how they can sound, how they should sound, how they maybe shouldn't sound, how a good recorded vocal sounds like, how a bad recorded vocal sounds like, and to basically know about all mistakes that can happen in the production, to identify them when you hear a mix.
I think there needs to be a point of reference for you, right? So you need to actually understand what is going on.
Exactly. You have to understand how music is created, how it's written, and how it's recorded, and the physical side behind it, the electro magnetical side behind it, the signal processing side behind it. All the steps of production should be known by you to identify errors and mistakes that happened on the way of the production, to point on them and give it as a feedback to your client and to the mixing engineer or to the artist or whoever is you're talking with or you're working with.
So we can answer the question that is asked so many times: can I master my own tracks? The answer is yes, but, and the but is a big but, no pun intended.
You should.
The problem is that you can't listen objectively to your own track. And I know mastering engineers which also produce, and they don't master their stuff either, because they also need a second pair of ears to objectify the production process. And this is, I think that's the most valuable thing that you can take from this lesson. Always have a reference point or a second pair of ears to listen to your track. And to follow up this question, because I'm guilty of this, and we talked about it, and you told me I should stop with it, and you were right, is the point, or is the fact, how should I treat my master bus? What should be on my master bus when I produce music?
I have the answer. It's simple. It's nothing. Best is to have nothing on your master bus, because you want to create the best possible mix before the mastering, and therefore the best approach is to make the mix as good sound as possible before you apply anything to the master bus.
Yeah.
Because then you have left the last 5, 10, 20, maybe 30, 50% of headroom to improve your result in the mastering.
But I've watched the Chris Lord LG masterclass, and he mixes into the compressor, into the master bus. So what now?
Yeah, but I mean, what kind of music?
Yeah, actually, that's rock music. Yeah.
Yeah, this is like rock music, and usually very compressed in general, with a lot of guitars, no low end, and basically, yeah, you can of course do that if you like the sound of that, if it's your approach, and if you can work like that. That's of course fine, but I would not recommend it. I would, of course, what I do when I produce or when I mix, of course, I use compression. Of course, I use bus compression. I use groups. I use parallel compression, but I leave the master bus free.
Yeah.
I maybe sum the drums to a group and compress this parallel or serial, or depending on the genre, even with a SSL compressor and full on in parallel can be very benefiting for a certain type of sound.
Guys, we will do that in the next episode. So today we just talk about the basics, and in the next episode we will then have a new date, and this time we will start correctly. We will start on point, because I now understand YouTube. I'm 31 and I'm too old for YouTube. Sorry guys, I'm too old. So we will show you how to treat your master bus in the next episode. Actually, I have a quite interesting question from, I hope I pronounced that right. It's Hümmelmann. And Hümmelmann asked the question, is it possible to mix the low end with headphones? And the interesting part is, both of us, we have these shiny, beautiful headphones on our head. It's the headphone from Head. So maybe we just talk a little bit about mixing low end with headphones and with these beautiful bad boys.
Yes, this is definitely a good solution if you don't have the perfect balanced room. What basically nobody in the world has.
Yeah.
Even the best mastering and greatest
By the
production
way,
studios.
I kissed the headphones in the stream, so I get now 5,000 euros from Het. That was the deal.
Oh.
Sorry.
Oh, nice.
Go on.
Nice. This is a good one. Oh, should I quiz? No. So where I stopped? Yes. Nobody has a perfect room because the perfect room doesn't exist. Basically, in an acoustical point of view, you always. I mean, the perfect room would be no room, and no trees, no mountains. Like, I don't know. The problem is
you have mountains in your mixing room?
No, I doesn't. But I have walls, and the room is, and ceilings, and the floor, and the worst thing you can have in a studio, I heard once, is a table.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But yeah, you need stuff to place your gear. I also have like this construction here where I
you mean a
try
mixing
to
table? You mean a mixing table?
mixing desk,
Okay,
yeah,
yeah,
or a desk where you have your instruments placed on, or whatever how you produce. If you're in a bedroom studio or in a professional studio or whatever, it doesn't matter. You never have the perfect room.
Yeah.
So you always have to, first of all, do room treatment to correct the room, and even if you did, you will never get a perfect flat frequency response. And as some of you probably know, depending on the frequency of a bass, or every frequency has a wavelength, and in the case of bass, it's often played in that area where we are distant to our speaker. That means like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 meters of distance. Will cause different room modes already. So this is something that we try then to correct with room treatment and digital correction systems, like most of you know probably SonarWorks, or a more professional one like Trinov,
right?
Like digital room correction systems that try to avoid this.
So
can help to do that. By all this, I come to the point, it's very expensive usually. And probably the most accurate and cheapest way to get to a flat frequency response is using a good pair of headphones.
Yeah, absolutely. I did a video about the headphone. You can watch this on my channel, and yes, it works. This video works instead of this one. Okay, but I have been in that situation where I had neighbors and a bad treated living room right now because. Let's face it, I don't have a perfect studio right now. No one has, as you mentioned, but I wanted to do as much professional music as I could in this room. And what I found was, when I looked back at my last 7 years of producing music, I was always mixing on headphones because the room was always, I don't say the word, but it was never good. And at some point I was like, okay, the money that I could spend on treatment and everything, and I would still have struggles with my neighbors, why not get some proper headphones and a good amp? So I have my ADI2 Pro FS from RME, and I also work for RME, but so transparency-wise, and I was just blown away by the headphone when I plugged it in, because it's the first headphone, and I don't want to sell you anything. You may find different headphones, but the headphone worked for me perfectly because it was the first headphone that was so precise that you could actually mix subharmonic bass with the kick drum. That was the first time that I heard something like that. And actually the transients and how they shape the kick and the bass, especially when you have a kick and a bass drum above each other, it's very, very hard for normal speakers to distinguish the different frequencies. And the headphone was the first one that gave me that precision. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, absolutely true. It's basically about the impulse response, I would say. That is, for most speaker designs, a big problem, because you have usually you don't have a one-way speaker. You have two-way speakers, three-way speakers, four-way speakers, 2.1 systems with a subwoofer, and so on, and you have to phase align them.
Yeah.
and they have to arrive face aligned at your listening position to give you a correct impulse response or uh, uh, impression of the transients or the first impulses that arrive at your ear or your body, depending on if you're speaking of very low frequencies too. And this is something that I have discovered is the biggest issue of most even high-end speaker systems out there.
Yeah.
And with a headphone design like this one, where you only have one source of sound, one membrane that is perfectly phase aligned, you don't have that. You don't face that problem. And this is a big benefit of this device. Actually, I'm using it as kind of a audio microscope.
Yeah,
I think
that's true.
Quite a word that doesn't exist because
but it's like a microscope.
Audioscope. Let's call it an audioscope.
Yeah, it's an audioscope, and it's a very very detailed one. I actually have some tracks that I really like to listen to, and I listen to them on the headphone. And these are productions from the 90s, electronic dance music, a lot of deep house and dub music, and you can hear for the first time like buzzing noises or anything that went wrong on the recording on these headphones and on the pads. And I was like, oh, okay, so there are 50 hertz, 50 hertz in the pad on the left and the right side. That's not good. So it's not like you can always enjoy bad mixes on these, but it shows that these are very very precise tools, and they are tools. They have a very big price point on them, but if you how can I say that? If you trickle that down to what you would pay for a good treated room or a treated room, let's say, and two very good monitors, I think you come around the same price. If I'm not mistaken.
I think you will pay way more because I mean this kind of headphones and also other headphones in that price range and even in a lower price range usually play in the quality ballpark where you pay not 2,000, not 3,000, but 10,000 or 15,000 or even more for a pair of speakers that give you this precision and this resolution. I mean, I have here like some very astonishing speakers. I have some I would say low end speakers like mid range speakers like Adam A7s or old P11s, and I have some high end mixing speakers like Adam S3Hs, but I also have like some very expensive speakers that for the mastering purpose. My head tower mains that are in a way higher price range, around 30,000 euros. But I still use those headphones to dive deeper and look deeper into the audio material to control even this kind of speakers in a very well treated room. I mean, even if my room doesn't look like it, but it sounds very very good here and very very tight. When I close the door, of course. But still, with the headphones, I find stuff that I couldn't hear on the full range system, even with this price tag. So it's in my case, I wouldn't only work on headphones, especially also for mastering purpose and other purposes, because it's still different. I mean, you can simulate a crosstalk, but you don't have it. And it's also saying that what I said before already is that nobody has the perfect room.
Yeah.
many people, of course, listening to headphones, and so therefore they eliminate the factor of a room. So of course your music should be compatible to listen to on headphones.
Yeah.
But also it's played back in rooms, in stadiums, in halls, in clubs, in living rooms, in cars. So uh, you have to also experience your track in a room, or at least the mastering engineer should experience it in a well-treated room that he knows, and that he knows how it will translate in other rooms, how it will trigger the room responses, how a club will shake or move when
Hopefully.
when hopefully when your track is played there very loud. So this is also one reason why I always would prefer a human being to master a track over a
Yeah,
machine,
right. Yeah.
because it's also something very emotional and something that is not measurable in technical aspects. How
Right. Yeah.
music
Absolutely.
should be perceived and how it should sound. It's not a formula out there that you have the balance of so much bass and so much highs. Specific music to work, or to be, yeah, to feel it. It has to also trigger you physically, and it has to attach you,
Mm.
and you have to get attached to it, and therefore it has to work also emotionally and physically. And therefore, yeah, it's always yeah, taste also, and feeling that goes into the mastering process, and where it's also important to include the fact that of course the room will start to shake when you have a certain level of bass.
I think that
But
is
this has to be,
the
you
very
know.
most important thing next to the objective reasons. I would call them the subjective reasons why your mix sounds wrong. And I think here we come into the territory of the actual craftsmanship of a mastering engineer, because when you say it needs to feel a certain way, I think you can only get to a certain point for a specific genre if you feel that music. Because of course I can go to a mastering engineer that will usually do jazz or classic music, and he can try to master a techno track or electronic dance music or hip hop or dub hall. But I think there is something. Maybe I'm wrong, but I've experienced that a lot of times, and it's I shouldn't generalize, but I can say that from my experience is that many mastering engineers feel safe in their music taste, or they would like to specify their mastering jobs. I mean, you are now someone that masters a lot of electronic music and hip hop, and I guess you wouldn't be so keen on mastering like classic music, right?
um well, I mastered classic music already. I
Ah,
also
damn.
mastered sometimes. I also mastered so often, or mastering some film music or music for games, where often there are also like classical compositions used, and orchestrations inside. And also sometimes I have to master some quieter piano pieces or some jazz. Um, but I would consider also myself to someone who listens to many varied kinds of music. I also went to classic concerts when I was young, often with my dad, and to jazz concerts, and I also have an idea of how this music should sound.
Mm.
But I, of course, wouldn't consider myself as an expert for classic music.
Okay.
So I'm of course I can master it, and I think I will deliver a good result, because I know about the dynamics and how the dynamic range of classical music should be. compared to a club track. You will never probably master a classical piece of music to -7 LUFS. I mean, you can try that, but yeah, I promise you it wouldn't sound good. So therefore, also probably is also a reason why it's difficult to give your mastering to a machine. Also, is it really depends on the track, not also only on the genre. I mean, you have tracks that would be counted, let's say, to techno or deep house or something that might have a break of 3 minutes, or with basically no kick drum and not much bass, and then they have a heavy drop and still have loud parts and kicks and bass. When you now try to measure the LUFS, you will, over the whole track, you will see that it might be very low, like -14, or very low relatively to compare to what's often out there in the genre, what is basically -9, -8, sometimes -7 even. But you cannot forget that the loudness is measured over the whole track, and that maybe the half of the track is very quiet while the other half is very loud. So you have to see also which part of the track you took in consideration to measure the loudness, and don't compare apples with pears when you try to level match to other stuff in the genre. Right. That's why I also try to avoid looking at the loudness meters, actually.
Interesting.
I mastered until it sounds good. And then sometimes I have a look, and if I think, okay, this is way too loud or too low for the genre, I try to pull it down or lift it up. But if it's like somewhere around 2-3 plus minus 3 dB, I leave it there, basically, because I think it sounds best to the track intuitively. And every track has a different loudness potential. It really depends on the frequency spectrum, on the elements used, and on the density, on the rhythm patterns. And there are so many factors that play into that. That this all, everybody is asking that what loudness and what. This is something that really is not. It's basically the wrong question, because therefore music is too diverse.
But you would go with me that there's a room for craftsmanship when it comes to mastering, because if I go to three different mastering engineers, there will be a difference in the mastering. So no mastering engineer will come to the same conclusion as the other one. And I think that's important, because at the end, there's no objective sounding track. There's always balances, imbalances, and some decisions in the process. And I think that's important to understand.
Yeah, and also what I also experience is that nowadays some people might really think, okay, it doesn't matter that my mix sounds shitty, the mastering will fix it, or that everything gets fixed in the mastering.
Yeah.
They often also, that people, they do everything themselves. And they think, oh, like, you can do everything in a bedroom studio. Of course you can do everything in a bedroom studio. And the mastering engineer will fix it. But the last point, that the mastering engineer will fix it, is,
So what
I can do a lot. I can change a track almost completely, of course, but is it what you want? This is one question.
You can't play in a new guitar, right?
Yeah, of course, I can try. But no, another thing is that there are also two types of clients that I would point on. What I also have to understand when I work with my clients, there are this type of clients that are very experienced mixing engineers and producers themselves. They have a clear picture of what their track should sound like at the end, and they expect me to understand this and basically just adapt to what they mixed and to put on the cream on top, the 2 to 5, 10% maybe.
Okay.
And don't change it much. And there are other clients that expect me to completely fix their mix in the mastering, basically, or to really to add 20%, 30, to bring it really to another level.
Okay.
What I can say I can do, um, and to bring really in my interpretation. And when you hear then, in this case, is when you hear before and after mastering, you're sometimes, whoa, okay, this is the same track, like, and and yeah, these are two kinds of clients.
Yeah.
And at the end, hopefully, both tracks sound great on the same kind of level. Yeah, but on the one
on as
side,
much mediums as possible.
on as much mediums as possible, and for sounding good for its genre.
Mm.
But of course, probably a shitty mix will never shine as bright as a perfect mix, even
Right.
after the best mastering I could deliver, even after stem mastering and so on. You can't polish a turd, so to say.
Stem mastering, for the people that don't know what that is, stem mastering is that you send individual tracks or groups. So, example, bass group, drum group, vocal group, and melodic group. And the mastering engineer actually can, like in a stripped down, mix down, can just level all the elements in that groups, in these stems on these groups. So maybe we go a bit further, because I know that people, many people would like to talk about gear. So we talked for 1 hour now about the mastering job, and now let's come to the nitty gritty, which is gear. So
That's the fun part.
Yeah, that's the fun part. Let's talk about the gear. I mean, I just switch over now to the big screen, so that you are in the center of the attention, and you can maybe show us some of your gear, and then we should talk about what constitutes a mastering grade equipment, or mastering grade equalizer or compressor or converter. So maybe you show us a bit what you have in your studio. I see some black beauties in your studio.
Yeah, many black beauties. I can turn the camera maybe a little bit, then you see a bit more. That works, right? I have a little latency to the stream, so I don't know if this, this should look good. It's maybe a bit dark. Maybe I turn on.
This is all live, people. This is all live.
So it's hard to see. Probably it's better if I take the camera in my hand. Sorry, guys.
No, that looks absolutely handsome.
So, so let's see. Here I can see it live. That's good. So this is basically, if you can see it, this is the centerpiece of my studio, basically. There you see some converters, some headphone amp, some a mastering console. This is a centerpiece here. Most of my gear, as you can see, is from SPL. This is not because I'm sponsored by them or something. It's because really I don't lie, even if I work with them a lot. It's because I couldn't find anything that sounds close and precise to that. And yeah, what of course the first point on when we talk about mastering with hardware, outboard gear, is that we have to, I mean, basically most audio material nowadays is laid down in a digital format. So people send me a WAV file or a IF file or any kind, or sometimes a DSD file, any kind of audio format in a digital way, and we have to bring it out from the digital domain, from the computer, to the analog domain, and therefore we need a DA converter. AD converter, sorry. No, DA converter. Digital to analog
DA
converter.
stands for digital to analog, if some people are confused with that term.
Yeah, and in case of mastering, of course, we want to have the best possible digital to analog conversion that is available. Sometimes I have now different options here, as you can see. I have SPL Mercury, what is a high-end DA only converter. Then I have their RME ADI to Pro as a DA converter, AD converter, and Lynx Hilo, what is also a so-called mastering grade AD converter. All of them are quite expensive. Uh, they they all play around like 2,000-3,000 euros, and they don't offer many channels. Most of them only have 2 channels out, sometimes 4 channels out, 2 channels in.
And the
Sometimes
interesting
no
part is you have actually 3 different DAs. And why is that? Do they give you a different sound palette, or do you just like to touch different things?
Oh, I love gear. No, it's not. It's no, it's really not about that. It's also a pain in the ass to route all of them to manage your setup. You don't want to look behind the desk. It's really a mess of cables, and you always have to think which one is on now and to switch back and forth, of course. But no, they all deliver a different sound. They all sound a bit different, and of course we're talking about now we're talking about not nuances. These are like the 2, 3, 5, 8% sometimes that make a big difference at the end to get to the result that you want. Some are a bit brighter, some are a bit feel tighter for the impulse response, for the frequency response. Some this is always a little bit of a taste, and also still I'm in the search, of course, always for better sound and for the next workhorse. So actually, I'm also trying some out. I compete some. Actually, I think for myself, I found a very great DA converter with the Mercury. Like, since I have it 90% of the time or 99% of the time, I make the decision to use the Mercury over the Lynx. The RME I just started to test actually.
I sent you that over because I forced you.
Yeah. He threatened me to use it.
You better use that ADI to Pro, or you will master my yoga session tracks till the end of your day.
Something like that was the kind of threat that I have to. No, it's a really. It seems to be a very great device, but I still have to go deeper into it and test it. Yeah, and of course there are always improvements. Still making in time in the years. The Lynx now is, I think, it's from 2014, or if I don't get, or 2011 even. Don't get me. I don't know if I'm right. But it still sounds very good. They bring a lot of software updates, and it's still one of the best converters out there. But yeah, and also then this is also then a difference, of course, then in price. The Lynx has AD, DA, and many options. The Mercury is only DA and costs a bit more than the Lynx, I think. So this, of course, and then this results also in a maybe prior sound quality. So yeah, this is the starting point that is very important, because if you have a shitty converter that is degrading your sound when it gets out from the digital domain from the computer, then the sense of using high-grade analog equipment gets less valuable, or doesn't make much sense anymore if your signal gets worse when playing it out. Then you're maybe better off with using a plugin. So this is the first thing in the chain that I always have to consider. This is here I can decide switching between my inputs, so I can switch between the 3 different ADA converters, and then I can also choose here which one I want to use for the monitoring, if they deliver like multiple outputs that I can route. And yeah, this is where I start my chain. Before, usually I use also, of course, some plugins to treat or fix some stuff. Most of the time to fix stuff in the mix. I like to use some precise digital tools like EQs or dynamic EQs, dynamic tools, things like that. And yeah, then I go out and to route my signal. I enjoy the luxury of using the SPL Hermes.
Which is a great bit of. It's an amazing kit. I also have it. That's a really good one.
I don't want to miss it anymore because here you see I can let's make a view on. I can define now my mastering chain.
Yeah.
I can say I want to go first into the Elysia expressor. What you can see over here. I don't know if it's too dark, but you basically see it. And I want to compress my signal first, and then I might want to go into EQ. Yeah, what can be the PQ from SPL that I have over here, or into the rubber bands Pultec EQ that is over here afterwards. And then I might want to do some MS processing where I can go into the Gemini, what is a MS matrix, where I can decide how I want to widen my stereo field. I can add stereo signal here, so everything that's different, left and right, I can attenuate or increase. I can add an elliptical filter to make a low cut for the side signal, and I can lift the mid signal or trim down the mid signal. I can change the balance if the phase is not in the middle completely. I can correct this here. It's also something you have to consider into mastering. And but I can also insert other pieces of gear and make them an MS unit. Mm-hmm. So I could, for example.
So what does MS stand for?
A mid side. That means I will process the mid signal information, so the mono information of my track, and the side information, so what is different on the left and the right phase, what we perceive as stereo information, separately.
Yeah.
So now I could, for example, I could use my pass EQ. What is a different kind of EQ? It's a passive EQ that have passive filters. That means it has a separate circuitry for every frequency, not like a parametrical EQ where you can floatly go through frequencies by changing the filter type. You have circuits for every filter.
Mm.
What makes this a very musical and very soft and a nice way of EQing your music, especially for mastering, because it doesn't produce so many artifacts. And I could use this as an MS unit now. If I insert it here now, before here, I encoding it to MS. That means everything on the left side is now the mid signal, and everything on the right side here is now the side signal. So if I insert.
For people that don't know what Paul is referring to, again, mid and side means mid information is everything that is mono, because actually the interesting part about perceiving music on a stereo system is that you actually have mono means that the volume of each sound is the same on both left and right speakers, and side means at the same time, exactly. And side means that there is a difference on the left or the right speaker and in different timings. So what the magic of MS is actually, when you start to balance mid-side signals, you can actually increase or decrease the perception of width, and that widens out the stereo field. So most of the plugins that you see that have some kind of a stereo widener actually use this technique to increase the side signal to give you more perception of wideness in your stereo mix.
Exactly. But in mastering, it gives me even more possibilities to dive in deeper into the material because I can attack certain elements of your mix
Right.
more
Yeah.
concrete, more directly because they are spread it over the mids and the sides. So, for example, I can try using then here if I have inserted it using the mid frequency around 700 or 1000 or 1 kilohertz or 1.5 kilohertz to address just the lead vocal in the center of the mix.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe the guitars are panned a little bit to the left and right, and the vocal is very much in the middle, and I want to bring just the vocal a little bit more up. And I
Right.
could use this technique to just attach the vocal and bring it a bit in front or pull it back.
I think
Yeah,
we should
generate.
show that in the next episode because it is
Yeah,
actually quite interesting what you can achieve. I had this, I think you showed me that back in your last live stream. There was a very disturbing sound on a crash signal, and
yeah.
you used the MS stereo equalizer. And the crash was actually panning between the left and the right speaker. And the interesting part was that you could actually decrease the harshness of the crash, but remaining the overall balance of the mono signal, which was the voice. So that was very, very impressive, to say the least.
Yeah. Things like that, for example, I can do, and this gives me the yeah a lot of options to go very deep into your mix, even with a stereo file, to just fix things or also to improve things. And another thing is to make a track compatible to mono and stereo.
Mm.
Often this is now then of course next time we will go farther into it, but we can of course then attach elements on the sides and bring them up, or we can lift the air band just on the sides to give you the impression of more room information, and yeah, little tricks like that. We can tighten up the bass by cutting it from the sides and lifting it in the mids. And there are many tricks you can do.
So what you're telling me now is that we can actually not only have failures in the mastering done, but we can also make mono, like with an elliptic filter. What you said earlier is that I can, by cutting out the mid-side signal at a certain point, we perceive the mono information below that cut. So meaning if I cut everything below 100 hertz on the side signal, you get a more pronounced bass, right?
You get a tighter bass.
Tighter bass.
If there was mass bass information, of course, it will be also lower in volume. So you have to add this missing volume in the mids.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I compensate, of course, if I want to keep the balance, I will try to compensate what I cut in the sides, I will compensate it in the mids and vice versa.
Yeah.
And another thing often is like you have a very a wide track that has a huge stage. What also is needed for the track to be perceived in the greatest way. But this track is also often be played in a mono context because it's played in the club context, what's often mono, or on big stages.
Right, yeah.
Or because it's played on sound bars or on TVs and so on. That often just play back in mono. And when you play it back in mono, you lose a lot, for example, of the strings or of the chorus effects from the vocal.
Oh, right,
because they are panned to the left and right. And so sometimes you have then to compensate it in the midst by adding, for example, some high or some bit high frequencies around 2K and 5K.
Mm-hmm.
To give the strings also presence when you switch to mono playback. What I use often also this button on my console for to check your mix in mono.
Right.
Because it has to often then it collapses completely when you switch to mono and then it's like half as loud as before.
The beauty of phase cancellation.
Exactly. And you think, oh, where's my music?
Yeah.
So and in mastering I also try to compensate this. but in the best case, it sounds the same in stereo as it was before, or almost the same, or in the best case, better.
Okay. So
So
when I look around your studio, there are these beautiful, beautiful, beautiful black machines. And these are, of course, all from SPL, Sounds Performance Lab. They are a manufacturer from Germany. And I know them. Sasha is a good friend of ours. So, all again, for transparency, we try to be as transparent as possible. But the interesting part is we came to SPL because of the sound and not the other way around, because we got something for free and we haven't actually. So let's take that out of the equation. But you have
no,
this.
sadly not. I don't get it. I wish.
I wish, because they are each like 5,000 a piece, is
Yes.
at least on the mastering edition. Let's talk a bit about these machines, because
Yeah. Should I put my camera back?
yeah,
so
you can do that. You can do that.
you see me again?
The interesting part is you were referring to analog versus digital, and this is quite of the this is the huge elephant in the room. There's this ongoing discussion about digital versus analog, and there are these religious type people that say, oh no, everything has to be analog, and there are the other people that say, oh no, you're from the old era, you're like from the 80s and this is all bullshit. We can do everything now in the computer, and we have so many great plugins now that sound exactly the same. Obviously you have what I would call a hybrid setup, and I have too, because I'm also very much into touching things. But that's not the only reason. You are referring to artifacts, and if you can elaborate a bit more on what artifacts are, what they sound like, and why do we use outboard gear, analog outboard gear, still to this day.
I guess you're talking about digital artifacts, or you're talking about analog artifacts, because
you were just
both,
referring to artifacts, and I guess you mean digital artifacts.
Yes. Yeah, especially in the case of analog modeling and digital EQing as well, and the process of oversampling, and yeah, basically in all digital algorithms, there are artifacts produced because of rounding issues that are related to the mathematical or physical fact that you cannot describe a circle or a wave perfectly.
So maybe you can come a bit more into the camera. You're a bit cut off. You just come a little bit into the middle. Yeah, great. So just to clarify that, whenever you have a digital signal, it's nothing more. That's a bad word, but it's zeros and ones, and we try to describe a shape, which is nothing more than voltages. But these voltages cannot be described. I mean, you can increase the sampling frequency, which will just make the steps more precise. But in the end, you still find that there are just like edges. You're just going up and down the scale of ones and zeros, and there's a problem with that in technical terms, because there has to be some interpolation. If I describe that correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And this interpolation is subject to errors. And these errors can be interpreted, or they can be, they can be calculated and then just put back to normal shape. But actually, if you talk about plugins, then you will find that people have to be really focusing on doing so much stuff to correct these failures that have been in the original process, if I'm describing that correctly.
Yes, and most of the time this brings up other artifacts and so on. So, and on the other hand, we have tolerances and imperfection in hardware devices as well. in case of mastering, of course, we try to find pieces of gear that have very low tolerances between their parts, mean between left and right, or between each filter section and how they behave, but they are always only close to perfect. Yeah. So in case of SPL, they are very, very precise tools. They're probably one of the most precise tools out there, where you have tolerances of 0.0001 dB. What is probably impossible to hear and difficult to measure. But they kind of live. They variate with temperature. They do something to the sound that, from a digital point of view, or from a mathematical point of view, might be imperfection, but this gives depth and detail to the sound. And because of how the designers of these devices, or the engineers, created these devices to compensate or to control this behavior of this electrical parts or electromagnetical mechanisms inside these devices, or even optical mechanisms in case of compressors, or the behaviors of the behavior of tubes, or the way how they distort and create overtones, and how they try to make this behave in a very musical way, is something very special that till now I think no plugin can completely replicate. And
What? But I
no.
heard that every plugin is now vintage.
Yeah,
And that every
sure.
plugin
You can enable the noise with a LFO on top, and if you have a wave plugin, oh sorry, and then it's vintage.
Yeah.
No,
Bitcrusher.
no, they can't. And even with the processing power nowadays, they can't. And on the way they try to do it, they're creating these digital artifacts that I was talking about before, and they sound anything but musical.
Yeah. I think that was, we were both in the room when Ruben, lovely guy, he's developer of Illusia. And he also was for some time a developer at SPL, and he showed us the Alpha compressor. And the Alpha compressor is a mastering grade compressor, and we just drooled over it when we saw it, and it was more than when we heard it, because it was the first, and I had the plugin, and the plugin is cool, but we heard what the Alpha compressor does to the sound. It's like opening up the space. It's like three-dimensional. It is just giving you so much depth. It's absolutely ridiculous. And Ruben told me, that is the beauty of analog, and we can't, to a certain point, can't describe what it's actually doing. You have these components, and these components, how they work together, are more than the sum of its parts. It's really magic what happens with analog. That does not mean that you can't make good music with digital equipment. This is not what we are saying, but what we are saying is that still to this day, there's a difference between analog and digital, and you have to be wise in what you choose for the job. What I find is that I love analog EQs, for example, for boosting rather than cutting. There are some exceptions to this rule, but especially what I get with like musicality, I don't know how to describe that, but it's never sounds overhyped or pushed. It's always like very natural, and especially in the highs. You can correct this with oversampling in your DAW, but I find this so interesting what analog does to the sound, and how I mean it's hard. It's a bit bad to say that, but it's always sometimes like too easy sometimes to mix on analog, because it's so forgiving.
It's basically, it is. I can tell also. I can do here things. I mean, especially with the SPL stuff, with that a lot of headroom that I have there because they're operating in a higher voltage.
Oh well, we have to get to that point. We have to get to that point. You know what question is coming
Oh
next,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, what is compatible to a higher bit depth in digital, maybe, or oversampling in digital? You could compare it like this. I have basically more dynamic range. I have more space to. I have a bigger canvas if I want to compare it with a painting. I have more space to paint, and I can do boosts of like 6 dB, 9 dB on 15 hard.
Yeah, I mean that's the point. I mean that's
in the mastering context.
I mean that's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I do stuff like this, and I have to. I'm questioning myself. Did I really just edit 9 dB in mastering on the bass?
You sit on your desk and then you question your life because you added like 9 dB on the highs. Yeah, actually, absolutely.
Or on the bass or whatever. Where usually every EQ is completely distorted and sounds like
they tend to fall apart, right? They at some point they do this like funky distortion. That's what I would call it, and it's interesting. I mean,
it's not funky. It's actually phase shifting that goes on. Where as taller as the slope is, the phase gets shifted to another frequency, and this adds up to the existing frequency, and this ends up then in distortion and in for especially disharmonic, unharmonic distortion that is not musical, and especially with digital gear is worse than with analog, but in analog gear, in most cases, you also come to that point. And some gear, what I want to say on like this, for example, gives me a lot of room to be creative, even in that case in mastering, and stays always musical and sounds nice. And therefore, I get a lot of freedom to make creative decisions doing the mastering that I don't have in the digital domain. And if I would try to, I would need like many tools and a lot of time and try and error to get to the result I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Here with the analog things, it's like usually it's like 3 minutes, 4 minutes, then I have the setting of 5 minutes maybe, then I have the setting for a track, sometimes for a whole album, and then I just treat every track a bit different digitally and send to the same chain. And also sometimes just even if I disable all my devices and just send it into the console and send it back in the converter, it gains so much depth and definition by just getting the sound of the input and output transformers that I would had. I don't know. Often my clients, when I master for them the first time, they are like, "Oh man, this is crazy! I have no idea how you did that." But
yeah, maybe I showed that. I prepared something in the background while you were talking. I was preparing the schematics of the 100 volt the 120 volt technology that SPL is using for their stuff, and maybe we can just show that to people what this actually means or what this results in, because this is nothing more. This is just voltage is. It's just it's just it's just zeros.
It's the same thing basically. It's electricity on or off.
But I show you these schematics, and so what you will see in the schematics now is that we have 120 volts, which will result in plus minus 60 volt. So we will get to that later, and this gives you, as you can see, a maximum level of 33.2 dBu, which is quite a lot, and it's quite interesting because this means that when you send a signal of like 20 dB into into a SPL equalizer, and you add like 10 dB, you don't find yourself clipping that signal.
Distortion.
Or no distortion. And the same goes for the dynamic range, which SPL states is like 141.4. and 114.2 THD plus N, which is like total harmonic distortion plus noise. And if we think about this, because I work for RME and we have converters that reach THD and noise, which is like 118. So what this gives you is like, it's like the perfect match for an RME interface, because this is the first analog gear that actually can match the specifications of the AD and DA conversion.
It actually sounds better than digital.
Yeah, this is
on the paper.
Yeah, on the paper. Yeah.
So this is also one thing where when I got to what I considered when I first looked at SPL and when I decided to invest this huge pile of money for a mastering console and all that output gear, that I understood that wait, we are so loud and so precise digitally nowadays that most of the analog design gear only adds distortion to my signal if I want it or not, if I want to push it, or if I want to if I send a very loud digital signal in there and want to add something, make it louder or whatever, want to work with it. I understood that that digital developed from 16-bit to 24-bit to 32-bit converters and developed more headroom, but most of the analog domain didn't over the past 15, 20, 30 years. They stayed on a level of tape or 16-bit digital formats, where maybe 36 dB, 36 volts plus minus 18 volts were enough to produce enough gain without.
And that was interesting. That was really interesting to find companies like Elusia and SPL, or Custom Audio Germany. Stefan, I will have him also on this show. They were the first that just said, okay, yeah, it's great that you have these converters that work in such a great and brilliant way. But do you have also the analog gear that can replicate that, or is
feed that?
Oh yeah, exactly. Repeat that. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, yeah, there is some kind of a problem with that. And then then they were showing me what actually was happening in these analog signal chains, and which is not a bad thing. I mean, if we think about it, I bought an really nice analog mixing desk, and this has an operating level of +4 dBu. So we are talking about huge levels now that we can drive into analog gear, and most of that gear, like an 1176 from Universal Audio or other stuff, they have like 24 dBu or more reference level, but their noise level is very high, or they distort very easily, which makes up for the sound of an 1176. So the sound of this fat compressor is actually the stage that drives or saturates the tone. But if you want to have like the possibility to work with that high levels and that high dynamic range, you need analog gear that can really work with on the same schematics, and that is absolutely so stunning that stunned me so much when I saw what SPL and Elusia can do.
Yes, the only problem that I see that is so many others don't get that. This is like really sad, because it's something where kind of, I think it's a problem of understanding of many people that digital and analog is actually the same. I mean, now I'm talking, it's maybe a bit weird when I say, okay, I just spent 30,000 euro on analog equipment when digital and analog is the same. But what I try to say is that at the end, it's just in the case of audio and also other things, it's a mathematical description of defined value in space or over time. And in case of analog, I describe it with positive or negative voltage that I read out or lay down on magnetical tape or or read out from magnetical tape or sense through a circuitry. And in case of digital, it's ones and zeros that I put down into in a database or on a hard drive on a storage device. So and I encode this with a electromagnetical transducer at the end, or have a DDA converter in between.
Exactly.
So what we do is a signal processing, and this actually, from a mathematical point of view, is just it's a digit format.
That was so amazing. I talked with Mark Einstmann, and we shot a video series for RME that will come hopefully in the next weeks about audio levels and sound pressure level. And it was the first time that I understood, in the end, you will always convert a digital signal back to an analog signal. Which is absolutely trivial to say, but if you think about it, this means that you will always operate in a sound pressure level at some stage. And this
if you want to listen to it and don't look in it, look on it on an analyzer, then yes.
Yeah, and that was the point where it's like, oh yeah, Jesus, and that was right before my eyes, and I was like,
now we should maybe invite Elon Musk to ask him if it's still a DA conversion if we have the
in the head. Yeah, exactly. That's funny. So I was completely blown away when I finally figured that out for myself, and there will be better implementations of digital to analog conversion, but it's always something that I realized that I always tend to have those like assertions with digital and analog. I just can hear sometimes when it's analog or digital, and that doesn't mean that it's one is better than the other, but it's the right tool for the job, I would say. And there is room for an 1176, even though it has so much noise and THD, because it sounds amazing on snare drums or on certain vocals. If you want to have
or on Chris Lord LG's vocal chain.
It's that, and people, and that was the most striking thing when I was talking about many people about plugins. I love plugins. I use them, but many people that talk about emulations of analog gear, they never have listened to the original one, or they don't know how the original one actually operates. And to say that X sounds exactly like Y is then obsolete for me, because
absolutely. And I never heard anybody who owns an original 1176 saying that the plugin sounds like his 1176.
Absolutely, because every 1176 sounds different, because they had so many revisions. I mean, if you look at the story of the
even in the same revision.
Exactly.
Like, that's what I say also about tolerances and even in the domain of mastering devices, where I talked with the developers, also with Reuven or with the guys from SPL, to find a stereo pair of transistors. They measure around 1,000 and 1,500 transistors to just find a stereo pair that matches in their working tolerances.
Yeah.
So even if you have like 3 iron devices, from the same revision produced in the same week, on the same day, maybe assembled by the same person, they will sound slightly different.
They are like a guitar, and that is the beauty and the horrible thing about analog
because
gear.
all of these pairs are a little bit different. They matching with each other, maybe, very closely, but they're still different than the 1,500 other pairs that they have.
And I can say that this is the same for converters as well, because also there are also tolerances on digital and analog converters. They are not as
and a chip is also just an analog circuitry, just a very small one.
Yeah.
A computer is an analog device at the end. It's power on and power off very fast, usually with a frequency.
let's not go to
a few thousand megahertz or something. But this is something that people really messed up. Like digital and analog is the fucking same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the way how we process the signal and what fragments and what speed, which frequency on which voltage scale. For example, if you look at a transistor on a CPU in a computer, it operates in 1.13 volts or something like that, and with a few gigahertz nowadays of frequency. But it does the same thing. It does it turns voltage on and off very fastly. It's the same thing like what a transistor does when it operates in 120 volt in my SPL device.
And we shouldn't start that conversation now about if then my computer sounds better than the other and my DAW sounds better than the other, because
the most people are out then.
This is a loophole. Don't go there, people. You don't.
Yeah, it's thin ice actually. I don't know if you use this term in English, but if you post things like that in a mastering forum.
Yeah,
they're fun.
I had that people telling me, I'm still on Mac OS 10.8 because it sounds better, and I was like,
awesome.
Sure. If that works for you, man, just go for it, and
never touch a running system.
Exactly. I'll go to the next room, okay? Because I don't want to enter the matrix now, and It was always there are always these like belief systems, and probably they are true to a certain degree. Like cables is one of these hidden dark sorcery stuff as well. It's just like dark magic. But I want to talk with you about the most striking thing when it comes to SPL, because we were both in a forum. And there was a guy from the US.
Yeah, just to throw in one thing before we end that part. The difference in digital is that you have a control protocol. Yeah, you have. That's what I said. How it's processed in fragments. Yeah, in analog you always have floating points. That means it's like endless flow of information of the wave form, like what DSD also tries to replicate. That's why people claim DSD to be more precise and more analog than PCM, but this is a topic for you maybe.
Yeah.
But in digital, usually you put information into packets, of bits and bytes. A byte are 8 bits, so and so on. And you always put into that package, you put the information what the package should contain. So when you unpack this package, you can control that it really contains all its information, all its bits before you put it out. So you're sure in the digital domain, when you have a digital packed sound, the description of a waveform, it's the same no matter where you read out this packet, if the protocol of that packet or the hash sum of that packet is correct. So of course 10.8 sounds the same like first point.
No, don't say that. Don't say that. He still has. He still has a 32-bit plugins. But okay. That's the interesting part. I mean, we try. We tend to look for. At least like the geeky audio guys, we tend to search for the optimum sound and for everything that could alter our sound and make our sound better. But I think at some point you have to let it go and start to work again. And tools, that is always the point. In analog EQ or digital EQ, they are all tools. And what gets you to a certain point where you're satisfied with the end result, that is the best tool for you. And I know many people that just master in digital, and their masters sound great. But it's always a question of sound, and I enjoy analog sound so much, especially since I am a electronic music guy for the last couple of years, and it always has been just a joy to run something out of the computer into analog gear, because it instantly sounds more organic. And this is why I do it. It's more of the organic feel, and I always have the other feeling when I record a guitar or vocal, then sometimes it's absolutely fine to have the digital recording, because the performance itself is so organic that you don't need more liveliness in that sound. So it's always, I think it's like a balance on, always have to find the balance of that.
Yeah, of course. Then it's on again to point on the very expensive gears that I invested on.
It's always great to tell people that you are better than them because you have more gear. It's
not about that, but it's of course also. I mean, I wouldn't had go out of the box to invest in like a vintage, a lot of vintage gear, or like a medium, mid-range level outboard gear that might do the job, but actually doesn't make the sound better, or add something very, very, very good, pleasing sounding to the signal that really I couldn't easily create with digital, or that will not benefit my signal.
And I think that's the bottom line. It's always like finding what does the job for that particular signal. But we talked about this before this podcast, and it was so striking for me. Airbus was talking, or was searching for the best interface, and for the Airbus A350. And what they found is that it's always better for the pilots to have as much analog controls as possible, because they will have this like instant muscle memory, and they will start to work very fast and very precise. And I feel the same when I work with analog gear. I always reach for a specific sound. I can always instantly hear what is going on. I just know at some point that there is the sweet spot for this unit, and then I go on with it. It's it's very, very fast, and I'm distracted by computers and the overall graphical interface. So it's always nice to listen to the track and then just work on the analog stuff. That's why I'm using it. It's a workflow thing and a sound thing.
Yeah, the same for me actually.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we had this really interesting question in a mastering forum. It was a guy from the US, and I don't want to be arrogant, because okay, you can ask every question. This is nothing to be ashamed of. But it was a mastering gear, so we were, The question was funny. If you have an 120 volt unit, like the SBL stuff, can I use it in 110 volt areas, like in the US? Tell me, and let's also give the other question to that, because more voltage always means better sound. So masterings with 230 volts in Europe will sound better than 110 volt masterings in the US. That is correct, right?
Yeah, that's correct. That was a very funny one. Yeah, I read that too. I had that in the thread also already. And the answer is yes. you can use 120 volt gear in the US on 110 volts, because
why is that?
We have transformers.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, we I mean your shaver or your toaster probably does not operate in 230 volts, I hope.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. And your oven also don't operate only in 230 volt, or your heat plate at home probably works with 400 volts, and maybe it's get transformed upwards, or sometimes get transformed downwards. So you have many devices in the studio also that running with 12 volts, and you plug them into a 230 volt circuit, or 120 volt, or 110 volt circuit. So the answer is pretty simple. And yeah, it's funny to get questions like that from mastering engineers, where their job basically is about signal processing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite funny.
But you have to agree that European mastering sound better because of that, right? Yeah.
Of course, this is the only reason. Yeah, no, but what actually is true is that the Rundfunkstandard, so we call it in Germany, or
the broadcast standard.
The broadcast standard.
The German broadcast standard.
Broadcast standard.
Have to love it when Germans talk German.
It's we operating in plus 24 dBu, and most of the US, I think, is working in plus minus, or in plus 18 dBu. So what comes out of the converter, on the DA converter, or feeds the analog signal, has a lower noise to signal ratio than in Europe.
Oh wow! Okay, yeah.
So this can be taken to prove that in Europe music sounds better. But I don't want to offend someone. But at least the noise to signal ratio is higher. That means, you have a more cleaner signal. On the other hand,
another reason not to go to go there. Oh
no, it's fine. But no, I mean, what causes often also to for the other side that maybe music over there has more distortion already when it's loud, or if you consider this better or worse, is also a question of taste. This is also, one thing is to measure, the other thing is your taste. And on the other hand, of course, as we said before, electrical equipment that distort already with 21 dBu is not made for 24 dBu circuitries that are I don't know if it's the whole European standard or just British and German, or I'm not even sure.
Yeah. So we have reached 100 over 2 hours, and my camera went off. The battery is gone.
I probe also soon, and I need still have something.
Yeah, the whole attention is now on your beautiful face. I think we I don't know if you want to answer some questions now, and I just we'll be out of the stream from now. But
questions, yes, but
there are no
questions. You can
questions.
also do it next time. You can also keep your questions for next time, and we hopefully, I think next time we're going to go into detail and show you some actual audio processing that we will do with the circuitries and in the box, and going into the specifications and behavior of the gear I'm using, I think.
That sounds beautiful. I mean, maybe we just.
I thought about to offer you guys that we make you can send us in a piece of music you want us to, if you want us to master us next time, and we will pick one or maybe two tracks depending on how much time we have.
That's a great idea, actually, because people, please send some stuff to us. We will figure it out on my channel. We will probably do another half an hour for that, and then you can tell us what we should use. I mean, I'll put my email in the description box, in the video description, and then you can send us your mix. Otherwise, I have to use one of my mixes, and I don't want to be ashamed.
You don't want that. You don't want that. You guys don't want it. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
Jesus. Thank you so much.
I'm just joking. He makes wonderful music, but
yeah,
we would like to offer you to maybe master one of your tracks live in the next show, and then we can go into detail of how we can do the black sorcery to your music.
Yeah, that's good, and we don't talk about the sausages. It's more than that. I just add my contact details. So guys, if you have any questions, please give them us now, and otherwise I think we have 2 hours now. I mean, we started a little bit sloppy.
We said we do only 1 hour, huh?
Yeah, so, we said we would only do 1 hour, but you know how we are. You know, these musicians, they are horrible. They are horrible people, and you can never trust them.
They never sleep.
They never sleep. So I added my contact details, or you could also go to my website, phablemusic.com. And yes, that's it. I mean, thank you so much, Paul. That was great. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for having the patience with me. This was my first stream. No, I'm actually quite bad at this. I like to do more music than the streaming stuff, but I think it's so important to show people what we can do with mastering and with audio gear, because there's a lot of people on the internet telling you so many different things. And when I started making music, I was really confused, and I always thought I need plugins to be a great producer, or I need expensive gear. Then I tested that out and that it wasn't working, and at the end it's always the talent that does the music. And I think it's a great thing to have the possibility to hand out stuff to other people. And the mastering engineer, many people were telling me, no, mastering engineers, they are arrogant, they don't help you, they just tell you that your mixes sound shit and stuff like that. But it was never the case. Mastering engineers helped me so much with my music. They took really the effort to tell me what was wrong with my mix, and that was always a great feeling, because at the end of the day, nothing is better than to go back to your tracks from 5 years and to realize that you improved your sound. That is such a great thing, for me, at least for me.
Yeah, I can only agree to that. It was a nice conclusion. I think you're absolutely right, and I make the same experience also. And it's also what I always try to give to my clients, and most of them really appreciate to get a feedback on their mixes. And also, of course, you can also always join when we're not in this kind of situation. The mastering process in the studio, if you're close to Berlin or if you're in Berlin, this is also something that many people never experienced or really enjoy to experience, to listen to their music on a full range, high-end, close to perfect sound system. That's also something that is very important. But I think what a computer definitely cannot do, even if you measured.
Yeah, I mean to experience 30 hertz on a sound system, that is more than you can expect sometimes. I mean, that's impressive. I will have to come to your place at some point and.
You should, yeah.
Yeah, listen to the mains on your system. That is the next thing for us, for me at least.
Really, I'm looking forward to that also.
Great. Okay, guys, thank you so much for listening to us. You will have the chance to see us next time mastering your track, and also give feedback, valuable feedback to your track, which is really a good. This is just valuable for you. You would normally pay a lot of money to have a mastering engineer telling you what to do next time, right? So this is really valuable information for you guys, and I would like to see you on the next show, and then we will actually dive into the DAW and master a track. Thank you so much.